Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are taking a massive, and let's be honest, often totally overwhelming topic and transforming it from utter chaos into structured clarity. If you've ever felt completely lost trying to figure out the right way to manage a team or execute a big idea, well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to break down project management methodologies to give you the ultimate mental toolkit. So let's just dive right in. So be honest for a second. Have you ever felt like you're literally drowning in project chaos? Because we have all been there. You start a project and almost immediately it feels like you're just putting out fires all day long. And then, when you try to look up a better way to work, you just get hit with this absolute alphabet soup of management jargon. I mean APF, CPM, XP, Six Sigma, it's enough to make anyone's head spin. It can feel incredibly alienating, but don't worry because today we are clearing through all that noise. Here is our cognitive map for today. Number 1, what is a methodology? 2, how to choose one. 3, the traditionalists. 4, the agilists. 5, the optimizers. And finally, 6, making your final choice. All right, kicking things off with section 1. What is a methodology? Let's define the framework. Now, I know project management methodology sounds incredibly academic, but really it's just a set of principles and practices that guide you in organizing your projects to ensure their optimum performance. Just think of it as a framework. It is essentially the ultimate cure for chaos. When you apply it properly, a methodology makes sure the work you're doing is optimally mapped to your specific team, your unique organization, and your ultimate goals. It's basically the playbook that keeps everyone moving in the exact same direction. Moving right along to Section 2, how to choose one, evaluating constraints. Okay, before you even start looking at frameworks, you really have to look in the mirror and evaluate your specific constraints. Like ask yourself right now, how tight is your budget? Are you working with a small, self-organizing squad or a massive, sprawling organization? What's your appetite for risk? Is there room for the scope of this project to change, or are your deliverables basically locked in stone? And what about your client? Do they need to be involved at every single step, or are they totally hands-off until the end? Your answers to these questions are going to dictate exactly which methodology family you should adopt. Let's look at those families, starting with Section 3, the traditionalists and their predictable models. So the most famous traditionalist method is probably the Waterfall methodology. This is a very rigid, sequential approach. You move from requirements to analysis, then design, construction, testing, and finally deployment. Notice how it flows in only one direction. Each stage absolutely must be completed before the next one can begin. Now, this is fantastic if your end goal is perfectly clear, your stakeholders know exactly what they want, and you're working in a highly regulated industry that demands extensive documentation. But there is a massive danger to the traditionalist approach, and it's this. Swimming against a waterfall is not fun. Because everything is mapped out at the very beginning, you're in big trouble if project expectations suddenly change. Once a stage is completed, there's really no going back. If your project requires continuous testing, or you just don't fully understand the requirements on day one, a rigid waterfall approach is going to be incredibly painful for your team. Now, within this same traditionalist family, we also have the critical path and critical chain methods. This is for highly complex projects with a lot of dependencies. First, you identify all essential tasks, estimate their times, and schedule the longest sequence. That is your critical path. It tells you the absolute minimum time needed to finish. But since we're human and life happens, critical chain project management steps in and adds realistic buffers for delays. That way, your whole project doesn't completely derail just because one single task took a little longer than expected. All right, shifting gears. Section 4, the agilists and adaptable models. Think about this. What if you aren't building a bridge or a skyscraper? What if you're building software or a marketing campaign where things literally change daily? Well, that requires a massive paradigm shift. Traditionalists rely on rigid scopes, linear phases, and a push system, meaning work is forced down the pipeline. The agilists, they completely flip the script. Born out of software development frustrations, agile methodologies focus on adaptability, continuous iteration, and collaborative pull systems, where teams only take on work as they actually have capacity. It favors speed, data-driven change, and constant testing over rigid upfront planning. Take a quick moment to absorb this quote by Jim Highsmith. Agile project leaders help their team balance at the edge of chaos. Finding these balance points is the art of Agile leadership. I absolutely love this because it perfectly captures the spirit of Agile. You aren't eliminating chaos entirely, you are harnessing it. You want just enough structure to keep things moving, but not so much that you lose your ability to adapt to new information. So how do Agile teams actually get work done? One of the most popular frameworks here is Scrum. In Scrum, work isn't planned months in advance. Instead, small, self-organizing teams pull tasks from a priority list that's called a backlog. They then work in short, intense bursts called sprints, which usually last just 1 to 2 weeks. At the end of the sprint, they stop, run a retrospective to review their performance, adapt, and then boom, start the next cycle. It's a brilliant engine for continuous improvement and speedy delivery. And then we have Kanban. As David J. Anderson points out here, Kanban isn't really a lifecycle methodology on its own. It's a visual framework you apply to your existing processes. It originated in manufacturing and uses a board with columns to visually represent the different stages of a workflow. Instead of pushing work, remember, it's a continuous pull system. Teams pull tasks as they have capacity. It gives everyone an immediate visual overview of the project, making it incredibly easy to spot bottlenecks before they ruin your timeline. Now, if you can't decide between the two, well, someone actually invented Scrumban. Yes, I know it sounds entirely like a made-up word, but it's incredibly practical. It takes the absolute best of both Agile worlds. It uses Scrum's structured, planning-focused sprints and marries them with Kanban's continuous pull system and work-in-progress limits, which restrict how many tasks your team can juggle at once. It's a perfect hybrid if your team wants continuous flow, but still needs designated times to plan and work you. Next up, Section 5, the optimizers. Efficiency models. So if traditionalists are all about predictability and agilists are about adaptability, optimizers are all about efficiency. At the heart of optimization is Lean methodology. Deriving from the Toyota production system, Lean targets the 3 M's of waste. First, there's muda, which is purely wasteful activity that adds absolutely zero value for the customer. Then, mura, unevenness. This is like overproducing in one department, which just creates a logjam in another. And finally, muri, which is overburdening your resources, basically stretching your people and equipment until they break. By systematically hunting down these 3 M's, you dramatically optimize your workflow.
The other heavy hitter in this optimizer family is Six Sigma. Now, this isn't just a method, it's an overarching philosophy that you can apply right alongside Agile or Lean. Six Sigma is borderline obsessed with eliminating defects and ensuring absolute consistent quality. If you want to improve an existing process, you use their DMAIC sequence. That's define the problem, measure the current performance, analyze the root causes, improve the process, and then put systems in place to control it going forward. It brings a rigorous, highly data-driven microscope to your operations.
And that brings us to Section 6, making your final choice, the final decision. Go ahead and consider this your ultimate mental cheat sheet. If your project is highly regulated, super predictable, and the scope cannot change, you need a traditionalist framework like Waterfall or the critical path method. If your scope is flexible, constantly evolving, and you need to iterate quickly, you want an agilist framework like Scrum or Kanban. And if your primary goal is reducing costs, cutting waste, and improving absolute quality, then you layer in the optimizer tools like Lean and Six Sigma. Match the methodology to your specific constraints, and honestly, the chaos will just disappear. And that wraps up our explainer for today. We've gone all the way from the rigid predictability of the traditionalists to the flexible edge of chaos balancing of the agilists, right through to the relentless waste cutting of the optimizers. The tools are all right in front of you. So I guess the only question left to ask is this: which methodology are you going to champion to conquer the chaos in your next project? Get out there, choose your framework, and start building with clarity. See you next time.